In this financial survival lesson about money, stress, and cognitive function, scientists put people's brains in MRI machines and found something terrifying. When you're worried about bills, your brain physically shrinks in the exact spots you need for budgeting and saving money. It's like your caveman brain goes into survival mode and shuts down the planning center. I'm going to show you the actual brain scans that prove why budgeting feels impossible when you're broke, and more importantly, the primitive instinct hack to protect your mental bandwidth when money's tight. But first, you need to understand what financial stress does to your hippocampus. Think about your caveman ancestor for a second. He wakes up in his cave and his brain has one job: don't die today. Find food. Avoid predators, that's it. His brain wasn't built for save 20% of your paycheck for retirement. It was built for immediate survival. Now fast forward to you. You wake up and your brain immediately starts running calculations. Can I afford gas to get to work? Do I have enough for lunch? When's that credit card payment due? Before you've even left your cave, your apartment, your primitive brain is already in full-on threat detection mode. Scientists at Princeton put this to the test. They took people to a shopping mall in New Jersey and asked them a simple question. Imagine your car needs a $300 repair. Then they gave everyone cognitive tests: memory, problem solving, attention span. You know what happened? People with less money in their bank accounts performed dramatically worse. But here's the twist. When researchers asked about a cheap repair, like $50, suddenly the test scores were identical across rich and poor participants. This isn't about intelligence. This is about cognitive bandwidth. Your brain only has so much processing power, and when you're worried about money, it burns through that bandwidth like a smartphone running 40 apps at once. The researchers calculated the impact. Financial stress creates a mental load equivalent to losing 13 IQ points. That's the same cognitive hit you'd take from pulling an all-nighter. But it gets darker. The people who need the most brain power to make smart financial decisions are the exact ones losing it to survival mode. Your caveman brain hijacks your modern financial life. Now let's talk about what happens inside your skull when bills pile up. Scientists used MRI machines to scan over 1,100 children and teenagers. What they found was brutal. Kids from low-income families had measurably smaller brain volume in areas controlling memory, language, and executive function, the stuff you need for planning and impulse control. But the effect wasn't linear. The difference between a family earning $25,000 versus $35,000 was massive. The jump from $90,000 to $110,000, almost nothing. The poorest families face exponentially worse brain impacts. Adult brains show the same pattern. Harvard researchers studying 11,000 youth found that financial hardship shrinks the hippocampus, your brain's memory center. And University of Wisconsin MRI studies revealed that poverty affects white matter, the brain's wiring that connects different regions. Less organized white matter means slower processing speed, weaker impulse control, and reduced stress management ability. Every financial decision you make requires more mental energy, burns more cognitive fuel, leaves less capacity for the next problem. It's like trying to drive a car with a damaged engine. You're still moving, but every mile costs more. Your prefrontal cortex handles what scientists call executive function: planning, organizing, controlling impulses. These are the exact skills you need for budgeting and saving money. But when financial stress hits, your brain redirects resources away from the planning center toward the amygdala, your threat detection system. Behavioral economists call this tunneling. Your brain focuses so intensely on the urgent problem in front of you that it loses capacity for anything else. You become hyper-focused on making it through this week, this day, this moment. Long-term financial planning becomes literally impossible because your brain has temporarily shut down that function. And you can't just willpower your way out. Telling someone stressed about money to budget better is like telling someone having a panic attack to just relax. The biological mechanism is broken. Let me show you what this looks like in your actual day. You wake up and immediately start calculating survival math. Can I afford gas? Do I have lunch money? When is that bill due? Before you've done a single productive thing, you've already burned mental energy on financial calculations. At your job, you're distracted. Not because you're lazy, because your primitive brain is running background calculations about money constantly. Every notification, every thought about bills, every moment of financial worry pulls processing power away from your work performance, which ironically makes it harder to advance or earn raises. You get home exhausted, not just physically tired, cognitively drained. Your brain has been in survival mode for 12 hours. Now someone tells you, track your spending, create a detailed budget, research better insurance rates, compare grocery prices, build an emergency fund. All tasks that require the exact cognitive resources you burned surviving the day. This is why standard financial advice fails. It assumes you have mental bandwidth available. But if you're juggling debt, unstable income, and constant worry, that bandwidth is already maxed out. You're not being irresponsible. You're cognitively overloaded. Studies show people in financial stress make worse decisions about everything, not because they're less intelligent, but because the processing power for good decisions is unavailable. You buy the convenient option instead of the cheaper one, because comparing prices requires energy you don't have. You forget to cancel subscriptions because remembering takes working memory that's full of survival calculations. You avoid checking your bank balance because opening that app triggers the stress response that's already depleting you. This creates a vicious cycle. Financial stress reduces cognitive function, which leads to worse financial decisions, which creates more financial stress, which further reduces cognitive function. It's a downward spiral that has nothing to do with your character and everything to do with your caveman brain trying to survive in a world it wasn't designed for. Think of your brain like a smartphone with limited battery and processing power. When you're financially stable, you're running on a full charge with just a few apps open. You have plenty of capacity for financial planning, careful research, strategic thinking, disciplined decisions. But financial stress is like running 47 apps simultaneously while your battery is at 8%. Every decision, even simple ones, drains you faster. Your phone starts lagging, apps crash, you can't load new information. The device isn't broken, it's overloaded. Now picture someone telling you, just download more apps. You need a budgeting app, an investment tracker, a credit monitoring app, a price comparison tool. But you literally don't have the processing power or battery life to run anything else. Your system is already at capacity handling survival mode. Wealthy people aren't naturally better at financial decisions. They have cognitive bandwidth available because they're not burning it on survival calculations. Their mental apps are different. Investment strategies, tax optimization, estate planning. But they can run those apps because they're not simultaneously running the Keep Utilities on app, the Stretch $47 until Friday app, or the Figure Out Which Bill Collector to Ignore app. The poverty trap isn't just about having less money. It's about your brain physically functioning differently when you're worried about money. MRI scans prove it. Your hippocampus shrinks. Your prefrontal cortex shuts down. Your white matter gets disorganized. This isn't metaphorical. This is measurable brain structure change. Here's why willpower-based financial advice is neurologically nonsense. Willpower isn't a character trait. It's a cognitive resource that depletes with use. Researchers call this decision fatigue. When you spend all day making survival decisions about money, you exhaust your willpower reservoir. By evening, you literally have less impulse control available. This is why people in financial stress make worse decisions about food, relationships, health, everything. Not moral weakness, Biological depletion. Brain scans show that resisting temptation activates the prefrontal cortex, the same region suppressed by financial stress. You're asking the weakest part of an overloaded system to carry the heaviest burden. It's architectural failure, not personal failure. Financial stability isn't about being smarter or more disciplined. It's about reducing cognitive load so your brain can function normally. When you stop burning mental energy on survival, you suddenly have capacity for planning, discipline, better decisions, long-term thinking. This explains why sudden windfalls often don't permanently solve poverty. If someone receives unexpected money but their brain has spent years in scarcity mode, they lack the cognitive patterns for managing abundance. The neural pathways for long-term planning haven't developed because survival mode never required them. Their brain is still running the survival apps even when the threat is temporarily gone. It's like giving someone a sports car who's only ever driven in stop-and-go traffic. The vehicle has changed, but the driving patterns are stuck in survival mode. Breaking that pattern requires more than money. It requires cognitive recovery. So what actually works when your caveman brain is hijacking your modern financial life? You can't simply think your way out of brain biology, but you can reduce cognitive load systematically using your primitive instincts instead of fighting them. First strategy: automate everything your caveman brain finds boring. Set up automatic bill payments, automatic savings transfers, automatic everything. Each automated decision is one less drain on your bandwidth. You're not solving the money problem. You're removing the need to think about it repeatedly. Your primitive brain doesn't have to remember payment dates because the system remembers for you. Second strategy: reduce decision points to match your cognitive capacity. Instead of deciding daily whether to save money, create one rule. Every payday, $10 automatically moves to savings before I see it. One decision, executed automatically, instead of 30 daily temptations to not save. Your caveman brain never sees the money, so it can't panic about scarcity. Third strategy: protect your cognitive budget like your financial budget. If you have 3 hours of mental energy after work, don't spend 2 hours agonizing over which streaming service to cancel. Make the obvious choice fast and preserve energy for higher impact decisions. Your primitive brain needs rest, not more problems to solve. Fourth strategy: use external systems, not internal willpower. Don't try to remember stuff, set phone alerts. Don't try to resist spending through discipline, remove the credit card from your wallet. Don't try to track expenses mentally, use automatic categorization tools. You're working with your brain's limitations, not pretending they don't exist. Fifth strategy: batch your money decisions into one weekly session. Your caveman brain does better with focused threat response than constant low-level anxiety. Set aside 30 minutes once a week to handle all financial tasks in one chunk. Then your brain can fully shift out of survival mode the rest of the week. The goal isn't to become a perfect financial decision maker. The goal is to engineer your environment so good financial outcomes happen automatically, requiring minimal cognitive load. You're not trying to upgrade your primitive brain. You're building a modern system that works with how your ancient brain actually functions. Financial stability eventually gives your brain room to breathe. As survival stress decreases, cognitive capacity returns. Planning becomes possible again. The hippocampus can repair. The prefrontal cortex can come back online. White matter can reorganize. But getting there requires acknowledging the neurological reality. Your brain isn't broken, it's overloaded. The MRI scans don't lie. Financial stress physically changes your brain structure. But that also means reducing financial stress physically restores it. You're not struggling because you're defective. You're struggling because your brain is doing exactly what evolution designed it to do: survive at all costs, even if those costs include shutting down your ability to plan for next month. Now you know why budgeting feels impossible when you're broke. It's not willpower failure. It's your caveman brain protecting you from what it perceives as immediate threats. The solution isn't to fight your primitive instincts, it's to build systems that work with them. Automate the boring stuff, reduce the decision load, protect your cognitive bandwidth like the limited resource it actually is. Subscribe to Cave Finance for more financial survival lessons that actually respect how your primitive brain works in the modern money jungle.